Zack Snyder's Justice League was just released on HBO Max. It was directed by Zack Snyder himself and stars Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, and Ray Fisher, and follows the story of Batman as he attempts to bring together the Justice League to face off against the threat of Steppenwolf, who has plans of destroying Earth with the Mother Boxes. Guys, the Snyder Cut has become so legendary at this point, and this film is a historic event for how it was able to be brought into existence in the first place. Many people were upset, especially Snyder fans, that we didn't get this film in the theater, and in their eyes we got an inferior cut with the movie that Joss Whedon helped put together by rewriting the film, restructuring it, and making it a ton more shorter. The theatrical cut of Justice League was a huge disappointment for many people, and even as somebody like me that liked the film, I can say that it was pretty lackluster, and it didn't feel like that big, epic Justice League film that it could have been. But with a bunch of dedicated fans and a hashtag Release the Snyder Cut movement, fans willed this movie into existence after its director had to part ways due to a family tragedy, and now we have this. Zack Snyder got to complete his vision for Justice League, and what do I think about it? Well, I've been really nervous about this film for over a year now since it was announced, just because I haven't been the hugest fan of Zack Snyder's direction with these DC movies. I like Man of Steel, alright. There's some really good moments in there, but there's just a lot of bland moments too. And then Batman vs. Superman, to me, is just a mess with so many things going on, and I don't care for the tone and the emptiness of what it's trying to say. It has a lot of things to talk about with gods and men and demons, heaven and hell, and to me, just all that stuff is too heavy-handed. It doesn't work in the film, and it makes the film seem deeper than it actually was, and I was afraid that Justice League was going to be that. And I can safely say that it wasn't. Zack Snyder listened to his critics, and him and Chris Terrio developed a film that is actually really fun, thought-provoking, and is filled with such lovely characters with depth, and I was surprised by what I saw and was really happy with what we got. Zack Snyder has stripped down Justice League to be, I think, more marketable for an audience, easier to digest, and just a whole lot more fun. It's not heavy-handed. It does have its epic moments, probably a little too much going on, but at the end of the day, this is not just a superior cut to the theatrical Justice League, but it's superior to both Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman. I will say, when I first was watching this film, it was so bizarre watching scenes that I had already seen in the theatrical cut of Justice League, but with new context, with new music, with, some different things going on, some different shots here and there, and watching them play out differently was really fun, and I'm glad that I've watched that theatrical cut of Justice League as much as I could to become familiar with that movie, so that it made this movie even more of a joy to watch, to see all the stuff that was different. So basically what we got here is a huge 4-hour, extremely bloated superhero movie with basically everything that was shot for the film, more or less. And in that way, it can seem kind of like a rough cut of the movie. But honestly, I was surprised by the pacing of this film. I never felt like I was watching a 4-hour movie. It felt extremely well paced. It was nice and quick, and it felt like 2.5 hours at least. And I don't know, that just really, really surprised me. I was also surprised by the character depth that I was not expecting. With the theatrical cut, one of the biggest problems was we didn't get a lot of time to focus on many of the new characters. They just kind of showed up, and they were the bare minimum that they needed to be for us to kind of understand them. But here, we get that time. We get this wonderful scene with Barry Allen, the Flash, where we see him kind of save the day, save this girl, and it's really well done. We get some of that great stuff that I loved in the theatrical cut with his father who's in prison, played by Billy Crudup, and the scenes are even more impactful now. And then we get stuff like stuff with Aquaman and Willem Dafoe, who I did not know was in the Snyder cut of this film at all. That really surprised me, and I was so happy to see him, and those scenes were really good. We get to see Aquaman grow throughout this film, and we get to see a lot of these characters grow. But really, the heart of the film is Cyborg. We get so much more with this character, and he's definitely the heart of the film. I cared about him the most. He had the most depth, the most tragic backstory, and the biggest role to play in the entire thing. So yeah, the character development is fantastic, I think. I think every character is able to grow throughout this film. And another thing I was surprised by was character arcs. Most of the characters in this film, not all of them, but most of them have some sort of arc that they go through throughout the film. And also, I was surprised by the setup and payoff of many scenes throughout the film. Stuff that was brought up in the beginning ended up being in the very end of the movie and paid off in a really wonderful and satisfying way. I was also taken aback by how emotionally invested I got in this film, because for me, Man of Steel has good intentions, but it's just, to me, emotionally hollow. It has the illusion of being deep and having some really thought-provoking things in it, but to me, it just kind of falls flat. A lot of the emotions feel forced. And Batman vs. Superman, to me, just doesn't have any of that. But this movie, I was really satisfied by how emotionally invested I got in the characters, specifically Cyborg and the Flash, as well as Superman himself. When Superman is brought back to life, and we see moments of, him being with Lois Lane and then his mother, and that amazing scene of him going into the Kryptonian ship to put on the black suit. There's some stuff in there I'm not going to say because of spoilers, but it really got me. And what got me was the music as well. Now, I actually really did like the Danny Elfman stuff in that theatrical cut, but I can't say that it's that memorable. And also, with Batman vs. Superman, I wasn't the biggest fan of Junkie XL's music. I found that movie just loud and bombastic and just not fun to listen to at all. But here, the music fits the feeling of the film. It's huge, it's epic, it's heroic, and satisfying and beautiful at times. And it mixes well with the music and themes that we already got in Man of Steel. And so some of these moments are just amazing to watch. Also, a huge overhaul is Steppenwolf, not just in his design, but in his character. He's not the deepest character in the world, but he definitely has a lot more to him as he is trying to please his master, Darkseid. And that was one of the biggest things of this movie, is we finally get a look at a live-action Darkseid, and He is extremely threatening. So is Steppenwolf. But, like, seeing these two giants on screen is really great, and it leads into potential other Justice League movies that we may never get, honestly. But it was still just great seeing a lot of this stuff and seeing these characters work together as a team. It was just great to behold. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I left the movie completely satisfied with a great reveal at the end that I knew was happening, but it was still just great to see somebody that has at least loved the animated Justice League. It was great seeing a certain character pop up. But in terms of negatives with this film, and these are kind of the problems I have with the film that kind of push the movie back from being extremely just great. And one of my problems with it is the aspect ratio itself. Now, obviously, some people are going to be talking about this. The movie is in a 4:3 aspect ratio, which is basically full screen. And Zack Snyder's reasoning behind this was because 4:3 is better displayed in IMAX, and also that, the taller image kind of makes the characters stand like huge monuments and everything. And to me, that's just kind of pretentious. And also, this movie is so grand and so beautiful at times that I want an entire screen to fill up with these images, because I think this movie looks genuinely beautiful. And also the 4-hour runtime. Now, for some people, this is going to bother them. For me, personally, it didn't bother me. But what did bother me, especially when I rewatched this movie, was that there's clearly scenes that could have been cut for this release. There's scenes that don't really play into the rest of the film. They don't need explained, and just little stuff like that to tighten up the film here and there could have helped this movie at least be a little bit more tighter and well-rounded. But as it stands, I still think that this 4-hour cut doesn't feel like a 4-hour cut. But obviously there's things that I don't think you necessarily needed. I also found that the first act of the movie, much like with Batman vs. Superman, is just kind of a lot of scenes happening. There's a ton of setup in this movie, and, it is 4 hours, but there's a lot of setup and a lot of switching between characters and different scenes and different things going on. You are with this character, then you don't see that character for 20 or so more minutes. And it does make that first act kind of jumbled and confusing at times, and just it doesn't flow well from scene to scene. Also, another negative that I want to mention is Ezra Miller's Barry Allen. In both cuts of this film, theatrical and the Snyder cut, I don't think this character is that funny at all. In fact, I found him insufferable at times. It's just, he's not funny to me, and it sucks because he's kind of like the comedic relief of the film. But I think there's characters that do some funny bits better than he does. I really do like the stuff with Barry Allen when it's, more emotional and character driven, such as the stuff with his father and some of the stuff with him at the end. That stuff is good, but as for him as a comedic character, it fell completely flat for me. Also, the epilogue of this film. The first stuff with the epilogue, I genuinely loved. I think you needed some breathing room to really take in this 4-hour movie. However, the rest of the movie, we get this huge kind of, flash forward, and this is where we get, like, our Joker scene that we know was filmed. It was the only scene that was filmed specifically for this cut of the film, and I found it really underwhelming. In fact, I would say that this scene with Batman and the Joker is the worst scene in the movie. Like, I kinda hated this. Now, there's some people that genuinely do like the scene and like Jared Leto's Joker in this instance, you know, and these are people that may have not liked him in the Suicide Squad movie, but honestly, I couldn't stand him. The dialogue, for one, I just didn't like at all. The scene was also a little overlong, and I just found Jared Leto's Joker extremely annoying. I just didn't like seeing him on screen. It wasn't fun. It wasn't enjoyable. It was just kind of cringy listening to him. And it's clear to me that this just isn't a good portrayal of the Joker. And it's the same Joker from Suicide Squad. Like, I mean, people will make the argument that, you know, oh, he's different. Zack Snyder did some sort of different interpretation. No, it's the same to me, at least, and I just didn't like this. And it really did put a damper in the final third act of this film. But overall, guys, I was really satisfied with Zack Snyder's Justice League. I loved the character work. I love that it was lighter in tone. I love that it wasn't as complex or tried to be as deep as Batman vs. Superman and completely fall on its face. I was just really satisfied with everything I saw. It's not a perfect film. There's definitely some flaws with it, some pacing issues, some problems with maybe the writing and the editing, specifically in the first act of the film, where things just feel a little bit too jumbled, and also the fact that I didn't like that Joker scene at all. But still, at the end of the day, this is a really good cut of this film. I am so pleased with Zack Snyder. He listened to his critics and has kind of evolved as a filmmaker, and I'm really happy for him. I'm happy that he got to see his vision brought to life, and I'm happy that the fans that willed this movie into existence got the film that they wanted, or at least I hope they did. Now, in terms of this movie compared to the theatrical cut, obviously this movie is better than the theatrical cut, but I'm somebody that still had a fun time with the theatrical cut. So if I want to sit down and just have a fun, short little film that I don't have to think too hard about, that's just fun to watch superheroes be superheroes and is a little silly, I'm gonna watch the theatrical cut. I mean, I still enjoy it. It's still fun. It's not as bad as people say it is. But if I want something a little more complex, a little deeper, with some really good characters and character development, and seeing these characters in a big, grand movie that's worthy of the name Justice League, I'm gonna be watching this film. This is honestly my favorite of the 3 DCEU movies that Zack Snyder has done. Yeah, I like this more than Man of Steel, and I like this more than Batman vs. Superman. And that's just crazy to me. So anyway, guys, with all that said, I'm gonna give Zack Snyder's Justice League a 7 out of 10. I think on repeat viewings that I'm going to end up loving this movie more and more, and it could possibly get that 8 out of 10 that it almost was, but I held back on it because I want to see the staying power of this film and if it sticks with me. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed my other reviews leading up to the release of this film. These were really fun doing, even though I didn't love everything in them. They were still fun to rewatch and talk about, and I'm still shocked that I enjoyed this film as much as I did. I was wrong. This isn't Batman vs. Superman all over again. It is a really good film. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.